Welcome to Refurbishing a Vintage Model Steamboat. This is part 9, finding the best solution for radio controlling the reversing lever. This, by the way, is nothing to do with the reversing lever. This is a bottle of rapeseed oil. I've blocked out the manufacturer because it's a registered trademark. I often add it to my oil in the workshop. Oil for bearings, not oil for cylinders. And it's a really good, low friction oil additive. That's enough excitement for one episode, so now it's back to work. I'm refitting the piping that you saw me painting in the last episode. This is the pipe that goes from the wet header, or the tap on top of the boiler, to the superheated element. You may be thinking, as this is a radio-controlled boat, why do we need a tap on the top of the boiler? Well, we need a tap on the top of the boiler really for safety reasons, to isolate the boiler from any external components, for instance the displacement lubricator. It's not a good idea to take the lid off the displacement lubricator when there's live steam going into it. I suppose you could, of course, just shut the tap on the displacement lubricator, but then you will lose your setting and you may forget to open it again before you go on the next steam run round the lake. Steam going into the cylinder without lubricating oil is not going to be good for the engine. So the small tap on the displacement lubricator is best left approximately one turn open to maintain the oil supply. Logical when you think about it. On screen at the moment you see the mounting base for the boiler. I've removed this from the boat because it was damaged anyway. The soft solder joint on one of the corners of the base had broken away, so I repaired this by resoldering it, and it's okay now, but it's still not very strong, so what I'm going to do is modify it. I'm going to drill some holes in this base and put some bolts in the corners as an extra support, but for the moment I'm giving it a coat of paint. As far as a mounting for the boiler, I don't think this is a particularly good idea. The boiler sits on two sharp edges, so I'm going to alter this. I'll feature this modification in another episode once this paint's dried. That's enough painting for one episode. Over now to some mechanical principles. The radio control system will be in the stern of the boat. That includes all the servos that will operate the various linkages. And I need a servo to raise and lower this arm. I could use a Bowden cable, but I prefer the Bellcrank principle. And here you see me getting some measurements, and I've got a couple of Bellcranks from old boats that I've pulled apart, but it's time to make a new one. In this clip I've drilled and reamed a hole in a piece of brass. This hole is 3/16 of an inch in diameter to take a 3/16 shaft. The one on the bench is a commercial stud, but unfortunately I have to make my own because it needs to be a little bit longer. This was surprisingly difficult to thread. I threaded it 2BA and I also threaded the arm 2BA, so it's fastened with a lock nut, and believe me, it's going nowhere. This system allows for some adjustment. I can change the angle of the Bellcrank, and it really is a solid affair. Now I know there are many other ways to do this. I could put a bearing at the other end of the shaft, but I don't think I need to do that. And please don't write in because I'm doing it this way. If you have a better idea, why not make a video about it? There really are many ways of doing this. You could use a screw with a die block and an electric motor on the screw which is radio controlled. And of course you could use a sensor on the water gauge to tell you when you had low water and then automatically turn the gas supply off. All very clever stuff if it works okay. I've had one or two of these systems. Some have worked, some haven't worked so well. I always adopt a very simple approach to life. My marriage was a marriage pure and simple. She was pure and I was simple. It's pointless cluttering it up with complexity. Life is complicated enough. So this simple reversing system will reverse the engine, and it will make it go forward too. As you can see, I've cut short one half of this link because I didn't want it to be too long and foul the arm as the arm went up and down. Every part of this assembly is going to be a prototype in this boat, because it's not a commercial item and it's certainly not an open launch. I've made plenty of those, and if any of the steam engines had Stephenson's link reversing like this one has, I would have used a differential Bellcrank like you see here. It's getting very close to the time when the engine and boiler need to go into the boat, so as soon as the paint's dried on the boiler mounting and I modify it to make it a bit more workmanlike, that's what will be happening. Then I can continue. But for now all I can do is just play around with this and try and decide whereabouts in the boat I'm actually going to put this linkage. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful.